Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're on, well, one of the most ambitious intellectual missions we've ever tried to tackle.
I think so.
We're asking how you, right now, as a modern professional, can become the equivalent of an ancient philosopher. And we're not, talking about wearing a toga or anything like that.
No, not at all.
We are talking about upgrading your cognitive software.
That's it, exactly. Our listener sent us this just fascinating stack of sources that puts 5 very different figures in the same room. We're talking Aristotle, Elon Musk, Richard Feynman, Peter Thiel, and James Clear.
I mean, they span millennia, different disciplines, but the core idea here is that they all run on the same mental code.
First principles thinking, that's the software.
So our mission today is to unpack that, to really dig into this shared methodology. We're going to show how these 5 thinkers use this deep logic, how it's actually studied today, and maybe most surprisingly, the role that humor plays in all this.
Yeah, the humor part is critical. But to really get this started, we have to begin where the logic was formalized, with Aristotle.
Yeah.
He defined a first principle as the foundational basis, the irreducible truth. It's a thing you just cannot break down any further. This ground-up approach is the absolute key to understanding any system, biology, business, whatever.
All right, so let's unpack that toolkit. Aristotle gives us the logic, but how do the other 4 combine to make this a practical method for today? Because putting a rocket scientist and a habit guru in the same thought bubble still feels a little strange.
And that strangeness, that's really the point. The result is so powerful because it just strips away all the dogma. It gives you a way to do that Socratic questioning, to boil problems down to their real truth, and connect these totally different fields.
Okay, let's get into the specifics. Give us some concrete examples. I think we have to start with the person most famously associated with this idea today, Elon Musk.
Right, so Musk applies a strictly physics-based approach to incredibly complex problems.
The pure material cost idea.
Exactly, take space travel. Everyone else in the industry reasons by analogy. They say, well, the last rocket cost X billion, so the next one will cost, something similar.
Which is just fragile knowledge. You're just copying what someone else did.
Totally fragile.
Yeah.
Musk asks a different question. He asks, what is the minimum, the fundamental material cost of the aluminum, the fuel, the oxygen needed to build this thing?
He goes right back to the atoms.
He does. And by ignoring all that conventional wisdom, he finds these radical innovations because his starting point for cost is just dramatically lower. He proves the old assumptions were just inefficiencies. They weren't laws of nature.
Okay, so that's physics, but Peter Thiel operates in a much fuzzier world, market strategy, social dynamics. How does this apply there?
It's the same rigor, just pointed at a different target. He challenges accepted market dogma. He's always looking for some fundamental non-consensus truths that very few people agree with. That's how you get true zero-to-one progress. His whole method is about questioning the assumptions everyone else holds. If a market works a certain way, he asks, what foundational principle are they all overlooking?
And that's how he finds a monopoly instead of just another competitor.
The idea.
Okay, so that leaves Richard Feynman and James Clear. Feynman, he brings the just pure intellectual rigor to the table.
Oh, absolutely. Feynman was all about understanding the fundamental data and reasoning for yourself. He hated rote memorization. He always said if you can't explain something simply without jargon, you don't really understand it.
You don't know the forces that make it work.
You don't. And that is a truly Aristotelian idea.
And then we get to James Clear, which is so interesting because he applies this to us, to human behavior.
Clear is fascinating. He takes all this messy complexity of human motivation and just boils it down. He identifies the fundamental mechanics of a habit. The cue, the craving, the response, the reward.
And those are first principles.
They are. Because they're the lowest mechanical unit of that feedback loop. You can't break it down further. He strips away all the complicated theories and finds these irreducible mechanics. And that's how he builds such an effective system.
So that's the toolkit. And it makes perfect sense why studying them all together would be so powerful. Which brings up a really interesting question. If this synthesis is so universal, why isn't there a professor of Aristotle, Musk, and Feynman at Harvard?
Well, the reason is specialization. It's as simple as that. Academia is built to separate philosophy from physics, business from psychology.
But these guys are integrationists.
Exactly. They became so powerful precisely because they ignored those boundaries. They didn't care if a problem was a physics problem or an economics problem. They just wanted to solve it at its base truth.
So if you can't find this curriculum in a traditional university, where do you find it?
You find it in this thriving modern field that's often called the study of mental models and applied polymathy. The experts here, they don't just study the people. They study the underlying cognitive software that all five of them use. These are the modern sages, and they often operate outside those institutional walls.
And the sources pointed to a few key leaders here.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to look at Shane Parrish from Farnham Street. He's probably the leading expert in taking this group's wisdom and turning it into a practical decision-making framework. His whole Great Mental Models series is about this.
Right. And Tim Urban from Wait But Why, he wrote that famous piece on Musk.
He did. He contrasted reasoning by analogy, which is just social dogma, with first principles, which is physics, truth.
And Naval Ravikant seems to be a huge synthesizer of these ideas. How does he fit in?
Naval takes that scientific rigor and applies it to human systems. Wealth, happiness, habits. He sees them as engineering problems. He pulls from Thiel's non-consensus ideas, clears habit mechanics, and that Feynman physics mindset, and turns it all into these guides for modern life.
So if you wanted a name for this curriculum, what would it be?
Applied epistemology.
Okay, that sounds a little heavy. Applied epistemology. Break that down for us.
It's actually really simple. It's just the science of knowing how you know something.
Ah, okay. So not just what you know, but the method you use to get there.
Precisely. It's about questioning your own assumptions. And this field really focuses on three core practices that come from our five thinkers.
Okay, what are they?
First, you invert the problem. This is classic Thiel, classic Charlie Munger. You don't just ask how to succeed. You ask, what must I absolutely avoid to guarantee success?
You ask what the opposite of conventional business
You reverse your assumptions. Second practice, map the territory. This is pure Feynman and Aristotle. You don't just memorize the names of things.
is. That's fragile knowledge.
It is. Knowing a recipe is fragile. Knowing the chemistry of why baking soda reacts with acid, that's robust. You understand the fundamental forces at play.
Great analogy. Okay, and the third?
You have to make it work. So third, design the system. Once you know the truth like clear with habits or Musk with physics, you build a machine or a routine that inevitably produces the result you want. The system itself is built on that unshakable truth.
That is a phenomenal blueprint. Now, you'll notice the title for this deep dive includes this phrase, featuring their witty proponents. This really highlights humor. Why is humor so important to this whole way of thinking?
Because humor is this incredible low-friction tool. It lets you expose flaws in a system and challenge assumptions without making people immediately defensive.
It's disarming.
Completely. And the best case study for this has to be Richard Feynman's pranks at Los Alamos.
Yes, perfect example.
So Feynman's humor was always about, non-conformity, challenging authority. While he's working on the atomic bomb, he gets frustrated by this really cumbersome security system.
So he teaches himself how to pick locks.
Spends his downtime picking the locks on the file cabinet that held the most sensitive bomb designs in the world.
And he'd leave little notes inside the locked files.
Right, notes like, guess who? But it wasn't just a prank. He was engaging in Socratic questioning with the military police. He was proving the security was just a facade before a real spy could exploit it. His humor was a high-stakes lesson.
And it seems like this isn't a new technique. The sources point out that even in ancient scripture, you see humor and hyperbole being used as a persuasive tool.
Oh, it's absolutely true. Ancient teachers knew that a little absurdity cuts through the noise and makes a point stick. Scholars often point to Jesus' teachings as using irony and humor to grab attention, which is way more effective than just a lecture.
Like using these wildly exaggerated images.
Exactly. I mean, think of the image of a man trying to get a tiny speck out of his friend's eye when he has a massive wooden plank sticking out of his own.
It's preposterous. It's a visual gag.
It is. And it makes the lesson about hypocrisy instantly memorable. And then there's the satire he used against the religious leaders.
The famous line about them straining out a gnat but swallowing a camel.
That is a sharp zinger. It's pure hyperbole, pure irony, and it's all aimed at punching through that self-righteous thinking. It's the same tool Feynman used centuries later to expose military dogma.
So that's a perfect transition. If logic and wit can challenge a modern physics lab, what happens when that same pure first principles logic challenges our really deep doctrinal assumptions about theology, biology, the universe?
And that is exactly where the tension lies. If Aristotle were alive today, he wouldn't just be teaching 2,000-year-old philosophy. He'd be a modern professional, a groundbreaking geneticist maybe, or a top-tier strategic consultant.
He'd be applying that systematic thinking to today's problem.
And when you do that, you inevitably run into these foundational conflicts between systems. So we have to, impartially report on this tension when modern science meets ancient doctrine.
A great example of this is applying modern genetics to the concept of the virgin birth.
Right, it's an intellectual exercise in comparing two different logical frameworks. The biological dilemma, framed in first principles, is the Y chromosome problem.
To have a male child, you need a Y chromosome from the father. Mary, the mother, could only provide an X.
Correct. So the biological question is, where did the Y factor come from? It's an empirical rule. And the sources lay out the two main responses to that void,
Which we should report on impartially.
So the theological response is the divine creation theory, that God miraculously supplied the maternal genetic material de novo from scratch. That defines the event as a miracle, which, by definition, puts it outside the realm of empirical study.
And the other side.
The skeptical naturalist objection, using first principles, just concludes the event is scientifically impossible because it violates known physical laws. The two systems are just operating on different axioms. They don't connect.
And speaking of scripture, there's also the argument about the command to be fruitful and multiply.
Yes, some proponents argue that this is the first and foundational mission for humanity, coming even before the Ten Commandments.
Our first principle for human existence.
Exactly. And because they see it as so foundational, they sometimes use that logic to critique what they view as overly restrictive or anti-sex views within some religious traditions, calling them hypocritical.
So if we pull all of this together, it just reinforces why these mental models, this applied polymathy, are so necessary for these big boundary crossing problems.
Absolutely. That's why these tools are used everywhere in complex modern fields. Venture investing, behavioral economics, medicine. Think about using Bayes' theorem for a diagnosis, and especially in AI. The most important problems today are just too big for any one specialty.
So we've really come full circle on our mission. The path to becoming a modern ancient philosopher isn't specialization, it's integration. It's using this fundamental logic to build reliable systems, no matter the field.
And for our final provocative thought for you to consider, it really comes down to precision. We've been talking about how applying Bayes' logic requires clear definitions. Musk can do what he does because mass and acceleration are unambiguous. But what about human systems?
Right. I mean, our language, English, is full of ambiguity. What exactly is a professional? Or success?
Well, consider this. There's a constructed language called Logibon. It was engineered specifically to eliminate syntactic ambiguity. Its grammar is built so a sentence can only be parsed one way.
So it has the rigor of physics, but for language.
Structurally, yes. But here's the catch, and the sources point this out. Even if Logibon eliminates structural ambiguity, it can't eliminate semantic vagueness.
You still have to agree on what the words actually mean.
Exactly. You can have an unambiguous word for truth, but we still have to agree on what kind of truth we're talking about. A business truth. A physical truth.
A moral one.
Which leaves a final question for you. Is the true mastery of first principles about having clear rules like logic or physics? Or is it ultimately about clear contextual communication? And how much shared context do we really need to eliminate doubt? That's the final challenge.